Okay, so let's continue with the hands-on session for the chapter 3 that we discussed previously, that is the sourcing concepts. Now here we will first be doing a workload redistribution. We will be checking the team purchasing and the conflict related settings. We will be checking the PWL and the UWL concepts, the sourcing cockpit. We will also be checking the contract creation, the RFX creation. We will be checking further the warning and the error messages in the system, how to identify them and how to do a root cause analysis. We will be checking the configuration error on the warning messages and finally the message classes and the analysis for the same. Okay, so let's begin today. First we will be doing workload redistribution, for which we need to create a shopping cart. I choose the option, I go to the portal. In the same screen again we get an option of creating a shopping cart. I click on create shopping cart. A screen appears where we will be choosing add item and an old shopping cart to copy the contents of the shopping cart. I always prefer to use the old shopping cart since we might have data issues when you try to create a new one every time, and we might also have to remember the data. So let me just click on today to select what the time as the time frame. I find one shopping cart with one shopping cart which I will be copying. Select the same and click on OK. Okay, let's check the details if all is filled correctly. And we see that the data is being filled correctly in the item level with the description, product category, the required dates and the limit value. We check on the account assignment data and we see that the data is correctly filled related to category, cost center and the GL account. Once we do that, we now click on process to process the shopping cart. Okay, so the shopping cart number gets generated. We will now be checking this in the backend. Let's go to VBP_PD to check the shopping cart. Fill the value in the object ID field and click on F8 or execute button here to execute. Double click on this line which comes up and you will be able to land yourself up in the screen where you have all the backend data from the shopping cart which you just created on the portal. Okay, let's go back. Let's go to the limit item level and see the value of source relevant indicator. We will be monitoring the source relevant indicator closely in our session today. So we see that the source relevant indicator is currently blank. Let's go and click on this value here to see that it is blank. Now where that is popping up from, you can go and check the value to which table does this belong to. We scroll up and see that it belongs to the table BVP PDI GP. Let's go to this particular table by transaction SE16. Write BVP PDI GP and press enter. Now we need to enter the GUID value. GUID value would be the value which you get from the item level. Remember, source relevant indicator is a field which is filled at the item level, so we'll always be referring to the GUID of the item level. We also have a GUID at the header level which is different from this, but we will not be using that because it's a particular field which is used for an item level setup. So I have copied that and I click here, paste it here and click on execute. One entry comes up. I will double click on this to make it available to check all the data available. Further, when I scroll down, I see that the source relevant indicator is blank here. To understand what all values it can contain, I click on the search help and I see that the first one, which is a blank, so it is not sourcing relevant. So currently we will not be seeing the same in our sourcing cockpit. Once you go to X, it will be sourcing relevant. That means you will be seeing the same in the sourcing cockpit. And when you have the sourcing completed, it will change to Y, which would again mean that we will not have the same in our sourcing cockpit. Please understand why we are trying to monitor the sourcing relevant indicator on how it changes its value from blank to X and further Y. Okay. So this is exactly what we wanted to check for the sourcing relevant indicator. Let's just go back now to our screen where we have 5617 which is awaiting approval. Okay, so I could close this window now and go to the workload redistribution tab. The concept of workload redistribution we have already discussed. This is basically used when we have a lot of shopping carts being processed and you need to monitor those shopping carts on a regular basis, and someone needs to go and complete the data to check and validate if a purchase order has to be created correctly or not. So I go again to the same BVP_PD screen and check the purchasing group. The purchasing group currently is 5037. Let me go back. PPO SA_B. Let me go to the PPO SA_BVP transaction. And I click on any of the purchasing groups here. I'm not sure since they list out the name here, and in the back end we have a organization unit number. So what we'll do is just click on any of these. It will open up the window for you. 37 is what we were actually looking at, so I've opened on the right one. But even if you do not open on the right one, you can just simply go to up level, one level up, and you will see all the purchasing organizations being listed here, purchasing groups being listed here. So 37 is what I need, which is equal to 002 sourcing, the name of which is 002 sourcing. So in the workload redistribution tab now, I will select the purchasing group as 002, click on check button of the shopping carts and click on search. Once you do that and scroll the window down, we will see that the shopping cart 5617 has been correctly assigned to the 002 sourcing group. Now, the business scenario would in a real time be that all the shopping carts are getting assigned to a default purchasing group, and the number of entries, which is the 109 documents, show that they are currently awaiting processing from the buyer. So one buyer processing all the documents would be very difficult. So we have a central buyer who assigns these shopping carts to different people in their purchasing department so that the workload is redistributed among all. That is the business case scenario for doing this. Now what we do is we click on assign to option and choose the purchasing org, which is only one value here. So we choose that. We choose the purchasing group now as the correct purchasing group which we want the shopping cart to be processed with. So I have chosen here M02, which is 5002 value, and I click on go. The organization of the requirement could not be changed because the buyer cannot be the creator of the shopping cart. So we see correctly here that the shopping cart requester also had a purchasing group of M02. So that does not make sense that the same requester who created the shopping cart should also be assigned the shopping cart for further processing. Hence the system has given this error. So now instead of M02, I will be changing it to some other value, for example say 001, and then I click on go. We get a success message that processing has been completed. Now when I again click on search for purchasing group 002, I will not see the option of 5617. The last option that I see is 5616. That means it has correctly been assigned to a different purchasing group. To just reconfirm, I will go to the purchasing group 001 and click on search. Okay, so when I scroll down, I see 5617 as the shopping cart which we had created with now a purchasing group 001. Let's go back to the BVP_PD transaction in the back end. Earlier it was 37. Now when I refresh it, the value would change to 12. Do make a note of this because everything we do also affects the transactions from the back end and accordingly updates the same. So we now know the concept of workload redistribution. In the entire process, again, when we check the source relevant indicator, it is X. Okay, so what we will be doing now is, it is currently, the status of the shopping cart is currently awaiting approval. So I will close this window and I will go again to the back end on a function module called as SE37. Called with the transaction SE37. The name of the function module is BVP_PD status change workflow. This is a very important function module when we are on a testing assignment. Like here, now I do not need to see the approval process because we are already aware of the same. Hence, what I'll do is I'll just execute this by pressing F8. It needs the value of GUID. Now this GUID would be the header GUID for me. So I go to header GUID, copy the data and paste it in the function module. Change the value of IV status from 0 to 1 and click on execute. You will see the result RALS, which means that shopping cart has now been automatically approved from the backend. I go back and click on refresh, where I see the status is now approved. Now when I go and check the sourcing relevant indicator in the item field, I see the value as X, which means now this is sourcing relevant. So let's go to the sourcing cockpit further to understand how we can process this shopping cart. This is the same business processing screen. In that we have this option called as buyer, and there we have an option create PO. This would be our sourcing cockpit. So I'll now be checking for the shopping cart number 5617. Put it in the number of requisition field. Ensure that you fill all the values. Sometimes it gets automatically truncated. And click on search. Okay, for processing of this, I will have to log in as the ID of the buyer whom this shopping cart belongs to. So currently I am with the requester right now. If you see here, I am with the requester saying SRM_02. So I will quickly log off. It will just close my session. And I will re-log in with the ID of the buyer. And choose the same shopping cart and click on search. Okay, just a sec. I will change this to a different purchasing group here in the workload redistribution. Let me assign it to the purchasing group related to this user, and the user will be able to process the shopping cart now. Okay, so it was earlier assigned to 001. It is now currently assigned to 001. Which is having a huge list to process. To create a to go to the sourcing cockpit to be able to check the shopping cart with the number 5617. It gives me the out. It does not give me the out. It says no requisition found. Verify your entries. Now the reason why it is saying this is we are logged in from SRM_05 and the purchasing group is 5012 currently for the PO, for the shopping cart. And when I go to the PPOSA_BVP, I see that only for the 39 org unit, which is M03, the buyer is responsible. SRM05 is only responsible for M03 purchasing group. So what I do is I go and click on workload redistribution and change the purchasing group of the shopping cart. So I click on check. I choose the option here. Currently it is 001. So I search for 001 shopping carts. How do I know it is 001? Well, you have to again go and check the same in your sourcing, in your backend, and then compare it from the PPOSA_BEP entry. Okay, so I see my shopping cart here, 5617. I have selected this and I will now change it to the purchasing group N03. We will first select the purchasing org unit, which is only one value, 5002 here. Let me select this again. Okay, 5617 is selected. I have the purchasing org unit. Now I'll choose the purchasing group, which is N03 value, and click on go. So I'll get a status message update once the processing gets completed, and it says processing has been completed. Again, go and check in the backend and refresh your data. So we'll see instead of 12 it has now become 39. Okay, so once we get the value of 39, now we know it is assigned to the purchasing group N03. So now when I click on search, okay, let me just click on search again. Okay, I'll just open the window one more time. And put the value of shopping cart number here and click on search. So it lists me the shopping cart. Now this is called as the sourcing cockpit, and this is where we get the value of the shopping cart once it is sourcing relevant. Let's again check the sourcing relevant field here. Sorry, the field name is actually only sourcing. So yes, we have the value as X, so we see it in the sourcing cockpit. So this is how the transition would take place from an awaiting approval to a completion shopping cart. You can process the shopping cart further by clicking on next. Click on create draft to purchase order, and again click on process all drafts. Once we do that, it will ask you for a confirmation message required to create a purchase order and send it to the supplier. We click on yes. And it processes the shopping cart further to create a PO. PO number has been generated. Let's go back to the backend system and click on refresh. You will see that a follow-on document has been created. Now let's go back again and check source relevant indicator here. It is again blank, which means that now it is again sourcing irrelevant. We already have a follow-on document created for this, and hence we would not need a shopping cart to be processed further in the sourcing cockpit, and hence it becomes blank. Alright, so this is what we have currently from the sourcing analysis, sourcing cockpit concept. So we've checked now the workload redistribution. We will now be checking, yes, there is another option. Let me just show the create PO screen, create shopping cart screen again. Here, as you see, there is an option of team shopping cart to make available to the purchasing substitutes. We will now be checking the team purchase config settings on how we go about this. Let's go to the path SPRO in the backend. Click on SAP reference IMG. Click on SAP Supplier Relationship Management and the SRM server, and further on the cross application basic settings. You will have to scroll down to check the option define transaction types and click on execute. These are all the types of documents, business documents that we have in our system. So we click on shopping cart bus 2121. Always remember the transaction category for the shopping cart would always be bus 2121, and click on transaction type options. So we have two types of shopping cart, one which is created from an external system and the other which is created from the internal system, that is SRM itself. So I select this line here and click on the lens. This will show me if the team purchasing has been enabled or not. There are different options which are there. You may be able to do no team purchasing. You may be able to choose purchasing for admin only or admin and all users. So this is where we have the option to activate the team purchasing. Okay, so we know now the team purchasing options. Let's go to the next, POWL and the UWL concept. So let me go back to the portal main screen again. This is called as your navigation portal. Here when we click on advanced search, it will list up all the shopping carts which are relevant to you. You may choose to search any shopping carts. If I go to time frame and click on last 7 days and search, okay, currently there are no entries here because there is nothing waiting processing from my end. So it will list you all the shopping carts that are relevant to you. Okay, you may also go and check your inbox. This inbox is called as your universal work list. Why a work list? Because these are the shopping carts which are pending action from you. Wherein you might have to complete a shopping cart, that is approve the make changes in the shopping cart and approve, reject or resubmit. There may be other shopping carts which have been rejected by a particular approver and have come back to your inbox. You can make the changes and resubmit it. So it will contain all the lists that you need to process the shopping carts at your end. So this is the concept of UWL and POWL. Always remember, POWL would list the shopping carts that have been created by you. Does not necessarily mean you have to action them. But UWL means the shopping carts which are waiting for your action, wherein you have to either approve, reject, make changes and resubmit, or do something or the other about it. Okay, we also check the sourcing cockpit on how to use the sourcing cockpit and the progression of the sourcing relevant indicator along different stages of a shopping cart, from creation, approval and to finally follow on doc being created. Okay, let's go to the contract creation. We will be going to the strategic purchaser, and in that the contract management. It will show you a list of options to create a contract, create documents, contract template, etc. I already have a template created, so I'll just copy the same. It will open up a new screen. Once it opens up, you will be able to check all the details that are necessary for you to fill. We have a target quantity, target value. You can fill 100. This is the value which you will be sending to the distribution segment. That is, any value which is distributed would now be available to the different systems. For example, I create 1,000 quantity shopping cart and I distribute 100 out of it. So 100 would be now distributed to the ECC system. If I choose to distribute 900, 900 would be distributed and 100 of the 1000 would be left in the SRM system itself, because you want to restrict the usage. Fill in all the data here related to currency, contract name, purchasing organization, and all this would be filled automatically after you fill the data at the item level. So we see that the data at the item level is filled and we have distributed the same. Fill any in the notes and attachment data which you would like to have, like we have a delivery text, contract and line number, info record, etc. Payment terms are generally updated here in the notes and attachment, which are pretty standard and go with every contract that is being created by the company. Okay, so we have the distribution details with the purchasing organization and the location data. Location refers to the plant number. Then we move to the conditions tab, and you see that the pricing conditions are maintained and the validity range for the same has also been maintained. Let's go to the authorization and see that the username Currently there are no authorization rules maintained. You may choose to have a username who can edit or change your contract. Approval. The current scenario, there are no approvals which have been configured, so you'll only see that there is only one automatic approval which is open and has to be done by the system. And finally the tracking. You will see the document number. We've already got the document number created. Once you publish this, you will have a document number corresponding to it. Now if you create a contract PO based on these contracts, it will be updated with the numbers here. So let's just go back and check in the header the status of the shopping cart with the value CTR. Always remember, the first stage will be the discussion stage. If you choose final draft and try to save it, you will get an error. It says initial stages can only be discussion. So it has changed it to discussion automatically. Now I edit the shopping cart again and save it. So in a normal business scenario, you would first create a contract for the stage in discussion and close the same. My shopping cart number is 3445. So now this 3445 gets generated in the personal object work list. This is my personal object work list and it is having the status as saved. Let me reopen it after I discuss with my manager internally and arrive to a conclusion that we will further be creating the final draft for this. I go and edit the status of this to final draft and click on save. You may again click on edit and try to release. So it will again give you the same, it will give you a same error which says cannot release the contract. Why? Because it can only be released during the enforced stage. So I move to the next stage, which is legal, and I save the shopping cart. I again go to my manager and show them the legal copy via PDF or something. Once they agree, I will click on enforce and click on release to release the contract. It says contract release for approval. Now the status currently you see as awaiting approval, but as we just checked that the system will only have one automatic approval step. So let me just close this window. And when I now see here, the status of 3445 has changed to the status released. So we now know how to create a contract and how to release it by moving through the various stages. Okay, similar to contract creation, we have RFX creation. For RFX creation, we will be going to another option on the screen which is called as the sourcing. Okay, so for that you need to click on purchasing tab and further on the sourcing tab. So we have an option, as you can see here, of the creating different documents, auction template, RFX and RFX template. So I'll copy one of the RFX which have already been created by clicking on copy. It opens up the next screen for me and a few error messages because I haven't filled the mandatory information. So just have a look at the fields here. You need to enter the description, the detailed price information, which can be simple price with conditions or no price. Here we are currently looking for information on what product we are trying to buy. What could be the price or the best price for it. So I have all the requested goods, recipient, etc. details maintained here. I go to the bidder and choose a list of shopping vendors who would be able to process this. I have 2 vendors added already. Let me add search for bidders from the internal directory and try adding another one. So I've added another bidder. So we have a total of 3 bidders here. We check on the items. There are 2 items which are currently waiting for the bidders to process. You may add a line again and add a material. Choose any product which you would like the bidders to bid on. And I select the option here, 3rd line item. and make the quantity change to 1. The delivery date can be towards the month end, and once I do, I click on check. So there are no errors currently. Warning messages are fine. These are the notes and the attachment, which is again optional. You may choose to fill or ignore it. The weights and the scores. You may add a question by adding a general question or an item question. This is very specific. Currently for processing RFX in the initial stage, you would not need these questions, and you will only need a detailed overview information from the bidders who will be able to process this RFX. Again, I'll go to the approval tab and see who are the approvals. I see that there are no approvals configured in the system currently, but only one automatic approval, that is by the system. For the tracking, again, the information which you create with the follow-on and packet documents would be updated in this section. Okay, so I click on publish now. So it says that document 369 has been published, and if I check the status, it is currently awaiting approval. But when I close this window with the 369 number and check if the POWL list, it will be updated. When I click on refresh, yes, I see the number here with the status published. So now we know how to create an RFX. So we check the contract creation and the RFX creation. Remember the different stages in the contract creation and the different steps in the RFX creation of creating questions, assigning a general question or specific questions to the product category. This can all be automatically configured where you do not have to manually enter the information, but it can automatically flow from the category that you've selected. Okay, how to check the warning and the error messages in the system. So there is a standard transaction for the same, RZ20. We click on RZ20 and go to P2P procurement monitors, and further on the shopping basket, and see what the system error are. You should open the alerts now, or you can display on complete alerts. Currently there are no alerts to be completed. You do not see any shopping cart which is having any kind of an error here. Let me select a date from the past. Generally these are all archived, so you might not be able to see them at all after a specific period of time. Okay, I'm clicking on OK. So there are no alerts to be completed here. Whatever data you have as an error would be shown here in the system. Okay, how to check for the error messages now. We will be going to the transaction SE91. The message class for SRM generally is BVP_PD, and you click on display. You will see all the messages, error or warning, which can be a custom error message or a system error message that is created by SAP, seen here. Select any and click on where use list. Click on the check mark. You will see where all it is coded. So for a troubleshooting perspective, suppose I get an error related to account assignment, I will go to Control F and choose account. It will list me all the data errors, no account assignment exists, and enter an account assignment. So yes, this is my error. This is the error that I was looking for. Once I select this and click on where use list, it will list me all the areas where the error is coming from. I may click on any and try to find the source code related to it. Once you do that, your work has become very easy, because now you can debug and analyze what the error is and where it is coming from. Okay, so this is the error message, what we see. That is the error message E008 from BBB_PD. Let me just go back and we see here the message 008. Okay. So we see how to check the warning and the error messages. how to configure these error and warning messages as per your system requirement. So for that we'll be going to SPRO path and SAP reference IMG, supplier relationship management, SRM server, cross application basic settings, and we'll be checking an option of configuring the error message by choosing this option message control. Here we have an influence message control option further. When I execute this and check for the object again, please pass 2121, that is the shopping cart, and click on message control, I will see that there are certain messages which I can make a new entry for and edit in this section, which were standard error and have been made customized as warning. This was also standard error and you have made the start date is in the past as warning. So a user would be able to raise a shopping cart with the start date in the back. That is, they can also place a shopping cart or any shopping cart document with the delivery date in the past. This is what their business requirement is, so they can go ahead and configure the same here. Preferred delivery date cannot be kept in earlier state. Again, we have configured the same from warning to warning, error to warning. So this is how you would be able to configure the messages. Create a new entry, click on the message ID, I showed you the BEP_PD message class. This is a message number. Not all messages are configurable, only the ones which have been listed here are configurable. So press enter, you will have the text and all the fields. Okay, so there is already an entry for 303, we'll have to choose another one. Let me choose 438 here. Click on enter. And let me just go back and see what the issue is. Okay, we also have 438 entry here. So I'll choose some other entry, probably something in the 50s. Okay, let me choose this, BEP_WS. This is another business class related to SRM. You will have from warning, you can configure this as an error message or a note in the window. Remember, error message would be a stopping message where you will not have any data which can be processed further. So I have configured and changed this message. Okay. Alright, so with this we have done the checking of the warning and error messages. We have configured the error and the warning messages, and we check the message class and how to analyze through the where used list. Let me just recapitulate all the things that we discussed. In the workload redistribution, you should now be able to assign a purchasing group and complete the work. You should also now be able to check on how to see the particular purchasing group shopping carts by scrolling down the window. Team purchasing, how do you know where to activate? It is the SPRO part of define transaction types. Define transaction type would be your path where you can go and activate team purchasing when you click on the lens. Okay, PWL and UWL concept we saw. What are the actions and the differences? PWL is awaiting only your information and UWL is awaiting your action. We check the sourcing cockpit and the source relevant indicator movement from blank to X and finally to blank. We also check the contract creation, the different stages of the contract. We check the RFX steps which are needed to create an RFX and how to add questions. We check the warning and the error messages in the RZ20 transaction. Also configuring the error and warning messages, which is by the SPRO path, by going to influence message control. And further to this, we also saw the message classes BEP_PD SE91, and in that BEP_PD message class and different other message classes which can be configured and will be helpful in processing our shopping carts further. So with this we come to the end of the hands-on session today. So we'll connect again on a next session. Thank you so much.